Nurture and support. Nurture and support. This is a podcast theme song. And it's really short.
Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nurture and Support, a recommendation podcast sharing all the awesome since 2013. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And with me, as always, advancing the Amazon Prime Directive. And I need to talk to you about that because I'm thinking I'm going to be buying something from there that I'll recommend later. But advancing the Amazon Prime Directive, Mel.
Hi everybody, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and yeah, Amazon should pay me. I should get endorsement deals from Amazon.
You absolutely should. I don't know how Bezos is on Twitter, right? We can just probably tweet him, square him away, let him know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
So we just need our legions of Nurture and Support fans flooding Bezos's Twitter account with lauding Mel's support and advancement of the Amazon Prime Directive so that she gets free stuff.
Right. In fact, now that you bring it up, have you seen that adorable Amazon Prime commercial that aired in the UK with the tiny little miniature pony that comes out of the big old trailer and the big black horses are scared to death of him and they run away from him?
Yes.
Okay. No one in my office, how I neglected to make all of them watch that video 1,000,000 times before, but it came up the other day that I was watching it for the 800th time because it just makes me happy. I like to watch it.
It's a cute commercial.
It is. It's a really good commercial. And of course, I'm over there giggling at it. And so I found out no one else in my office had ever watched this video. So I've spent many days pulling that video up on my iPad, making everybody in the office watch it because it's so freaking adorable. And my business has to do with horses anyway. So it was appropriate. It was workplace appropriate to make people watch this Amazon Prime commercial. And if you haven't seen it, you seriously need to go look up the Amazon Prime pony commercial because it's adorable.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, right? So
yeah.
So we can. I'm trying to remember how you shared it, but I think it was the YouTube video of it.
Yes.
We can. I think we need to include it in this week's blog post, just so people can enjoy it because it is pretty awesome. And we don't get good commercials like that here. It's a shame.
No, I was very offended that we didn't get that sort of awesome commercial. It aired in the UK. We have to watch it online, but that's okay. I actually saw it on TV the other day, which is what brought it up.
On just actually airing it?
On our TV, yes. I did see it the other day. I was yeah, I think I was watching something off the DVR, and I forgot to fast forward through the commercials like I always do, and I saw it. So I was like, oh, cool. We did get to see it here. So amazing.
Excellent. All righty. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. Show number 110. I get to kick things off today, and this is where one of our regular guests is going to learn a hard lesson, which is she shouldn't muse about something that she might recommend later because we control when she comes on and I can delay and steal her recommendation, and that's what I'm doing this time because I believe Alicia mentioned during the show, I don't think it was afterwards, that she and her husband had been watching a little bit of Making a Murderer on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be my recommendation this week.
Well, it's a good thing. I was going to start watching that, and I was like, no, Kelly is going to get to it before me, and he's going to tell me all about it, so I'm not going to start watching it yet. So great, I haven't started yet.
That's good, and I do recommend you watch it. And actually, this will be, to take a little of the sting out of just completely stealing it away from her, I'll add a little bit in addition to it to kind of round out the experience. So Making the Murderer is a documentary. It's on Netflix. It's 10 episodes long. They each run about an hour apiece, and it's a story of a gentleman named Steven Avery from Wisconsin, and they talk like the Fargo people. A lot of the people talk like the Fargo people in this, which makes it a little hard to take him seriously sometimes. But he was an individual that had some problems in his history, and eventually got accused. There was a rape or an attempted rape in the area, and he was well known by the local police, and they didn't have a particularly high opinion of him. And there was enough information to say it might be him, so he brought him in for a lineup. The woman who was attacked identified him in the lineup, and eventually he went to prison for this crime, only to find out 18 years later there was DNA evidence that cleared him, exonerated him. He was released from prison at that point in time, so he'd done 18 years for a crime he didn't commit. And kind of in the process, it was pretty evident that the police felt they had the right guy and really didn't pursue. There was another individual who, with just a little bit of inspection, might have been a pretty good guy to look at as well. They didn't. And so eventually he brings a wrongful suit against the police force, and people are being deposed. And in the midst of people being deposed, before two of the next biggest people are going to be deposed, Avery's arrested again, this time for murder. Oh. And there's a lot of evidence on his family runs like a car salvage situation, so it's a big, expansive place with lots and lots and lots of cars and a car crusher and outbuildings and fire pits and everything else. And there's a lot of, eventually there's the car that the woman was driving was there. Her burned remains are found in the fire pit. There's some of his blood inside the car. And so, but this arc is along the lines of, while all that's true in terms of going through, when this happened, the kind of initially the intent was, hey, let's keep this particular police force out of it because potential conflict of interest. And that's what everybody was assuring the FBI was involved, and like, oh yeah, it's happening. But it turns out some of the familiar names from the last case were actually part of the group that they took his property and searched it for 8 or 9 days. And things were found late in that process, and they were found by these officers that had one of which had been posed recently with them.
Yeah.
So it basically goes through the process of covering the first event, covering then, as it gets in a little bit deeper than this, him arrested for murder, and then the trial, and the outcome of the trial at that point in time. So did the murder happen? Was the murder also an old case, or was that like current time when he got released? That was current. Okay. That was actually the woman went missing. They found. She was declared missing, and then they found the evidence, and the bones were her bones, and they found all of it a few days later. So it was contemporary to the time. It wasn't an old case. Yeah. There. But it's pretty fascinating to watch, and I'm going to do my level best to not spoil. I think those are kind of the big pieces you need to know kind of going into it, and you kind of come to your own conclusion. But the bonus information that I'll provide, and I'd recommend actually not going to this. I'd watch the whole series all the way through. And it is really good, and you're going to get really frustrated in terms of kind of watching this thing play out. But then when it's done, go to Google and search on Rebutting a Murderer, and you'll get to it's a series that was done by a Michigan radio station, one of their radio personalities, and you've got the audio you can actually listen to, or basically episode by episode, he offers counter arguments to it and kind of points out, and this is a thing that's actually kind of fascinating about it to me. First of all, just the story and everything that's going on is really interesting, intriguing, and frustrating on pieces. But then you also get to see the power of being an editor and the power of controlling the message and what you choose to put in and what you choose to put out, don't put in, and pieces of information, which was true in the criminal case that went on that happened. Right. But it's also true in the creation of this, that this was most definitely a one-sided accounting of the facts. Mm-hmm. Now, it seems to me to be a couple things in there that are pretty disturbing, regardless of innocence or guilt, that you go, something's a little fishy here. but it's very interesting to get that other dimension. So I found it actually kind of interesting to get through it and then come back and then just kind of go through the episode by episode. And they're just, it's like it'd be basically a printed page in terms of the length of each segment for each episode where they go through. So it's kind of interesting because it presents some of the other side. But even in that, you read through and you can see kind of selective, so it's a whole process of, well, you're going to skip this fact, but now you're going to hit on this fact and all of that. So you'll get a couple different sides on it. I won't spoil it in terms of kind of outcome of where things go, although I desperately didn't want it spoiled for me. So I was doing everything I could to kind of stay away from, because you don't know going all the way up until the jury comes back how this is going to pan out. And unfortunately, I came across an article because this is still kind of, because it's caught a lot of people's attention and there's different kind of conversations going on. There was an article about it, and it made it clear to me the outcome of the case. so we'll hopefully, if you haven't seen that or know the situation, I think that makes it probably even more interesting. But even if you do, it's still good to go, and then you'll kind of hear the other pieces of there. But you've got the actual story there. It is just a fascinating thing to watch. And one of the things that I think comes through really true more than anything else is the difference. If you are in a situation, a legal situation, and you are not wealthy, your hill's a lot steeper. If you don't have money to kind of help yourself out a little bit in this process, it could be a really tough. State's got an edge, and if you can't bring some resources to bear, you can get swallowed up pretty quick. So it was pretty interesting there. But like I said, the storyline's fascinating. Then to me, extra interesting is to kind of, because I've got some mixed emotions about the whole thing in terms of where it's one where it's really hard to come down and say, well, absolutely, without a question, X happened. He absolutely didn't do it. He absolutely did do it. There's just different pieces in there that make it really hard. So I want you to get through it, because then I want to talk to you about it and see where you land on some of these things. And we'd love to have any of our listeners that make their way through. Give Mel some time, let her get through it, but then we should engage in some further dialogue about what we thought about this thing. So.
Yeah, I've successfully avoided all of the spoilers, and I've been really proud of most of my Twitter people that while I have seen a lot of people watching this show and being, like you said, very frustrated and exhibiting their anger about what they're watching on Twitter, they haven't spoiled it in the midst of doing that. So yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but absolutely what you say about not having money can really affect what's going on right here in Texas. I don't know how much the rest of the country has heard about the Affluenza teen, but I'm right here in DFW where that boy was drunk driving and killed several people, and he got off on probation with an excuse that he was suffering from affluenza because he was so spoiled by his rich parents that he didn't know right from wrong. He violated his probation, and he and his mother fled to Mexico, and they got caught. And so he's fighting extradition back to Texas to fight all of that. So that's the opposite side of that coin, of these people had all of this money to get, it's almost like OJ, if the glove fits, man. He got off on an affluenza. So it's just sad. So yeah, there's the other side of that coin.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it makes a pretty big difference, and that's what you'll see in this is the process of the situation a person might be in if they're getting the public defender, and a situation if some more experienced track record lawyers are brought into play, the vibe changes significantly. So. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, and I had seen Affluenza, and I had, through context, I was able to get a sense of what the the nature of it was, but I didn't know the specifics, so I'm going to have to go read up on it. So he and his mom are currently in Texas,
No,
but
his mother
I
was
mean in Mexico.
extradited. No, the mother was extradited. She is back in Texas. They are trying to press charges against her for helping him flee. If they get their way, they will try to charge her and get her sentenced to 10 years. He is now 18, but he is in a Mexican immigration facility right now fighting extradition to the U.S. And I read an article today. It's just one of those things that his lawyers that got him off on the juvenile charge are trying to imply that perhaps his mother kidnapped him and made him go. But then everybody's like, then why is he fighting return to the U.S. if he was taken to Mexico against his will? He's 18. It's ridiculous. You want to talk about getting frustrated? You read about this kid and you will get really frustrated.
Okay.
But affluenza, my God, that is not a thing in Texas, y'all. I just want you to know this is even a ridiculous case by our standards. So anyway, on that uplifting note, my recommendation this week is also from Netflix. So when you get too frustrated at making a murderer, you can go watch a movie called After. It was made in 2012, and I think it's relatively new to Netflix. I think it was up on the new releases part on Netflix, but I didn't realize this until after I started watching it, that it's kind of timely, because if you are an Expanse watcher, Stephen Strait is one of the main characters. He plays Holden in The Expanse. So I didn't realize that. I knew he looked familiar, and then I looked him up and was like, yeah, that's the guy in The Expanse. So this movie is technically kind of classified as a fantasy horror thriller type thing. The actual description is when two bus crash survivors awake to discover that they're the only people left in their town, they work together to unravel the truth behind the strange events. So when you read a description like that, if you're me, you're like, zombies or aliens, there's no in between. We've got to have the zombie apocalypse or we've got to have aliens.
Or a Nickelback concert. That'll clear a place out pretty quick.
It will. So these two people meet on a bus. I'll just set it up for you. I'm going to try not to spoil it too much for you. There's a little twist, but they give it away within about 20 minutes of the movie starting. So I'll warn you in case you don't want to hear that. But they meet on a bus. It just so happens that they're the only two people on the bus. They're also headed to the same small town, and they live on the same street in this small town. And so Freddie is kind of hitting on this girl who clearly just wants him to leave her alone. And then in the midst of that, obviously the bus is in some sort of accident. And then it flashes forward to her waking up at home and thinking she's late for work and running off to work where she's a nurse in the hospital. And there's nobody there. Now, one of the ridiculous things that you'll notice immediately is that it takes her a really long time to figure out there's nobody in the hospital. And I'm like, there was nobody on the street on your way to the hospital. That is really called a panic. But it's got a little bit of ridiculous to it, but it does. That's where that fantasy moniker comes in. It's really got some neat little fantasy aspects to it that I like. The town is surrounded by this black cloud from, the whole thing, like a big wall, almost like a dome.
Almost.
Only the black cloud is inching forward at a very slow pace. He estimates that they have about 3 days before the cloud, reaches the center of town. They end up coming across some other really fantastical things, like there's a monster in the black cloud, things like that are obviously of a fantasy base. So here's the spoiler alert, y'all. If you don't want to hear it, mute right now. It turns out they're in a coma from the bus accident, and that's why there's nobody else in the town. And so this is all kind of playing along in their head, and you end up finding out that they have a shared history that they actually met as children because they both grew up in this town, and a few tragedies that happened in this town that they were inadvertently involved in that connected them, even though they didn't know it, just like in some sort of fantasy novel. So little things play out throughout the movie that the monster's actually pretty cool. I like the monster. There's like a magic door floating in the black cloud that has a million keys underneath it. They have to unlock the door to escape, is what they think. So it's kind of a suspenseful feel to it. They are the only characters. They do go through some flashbacks, so there are a few other actors in it, but they're the two main characters. All of the action and suspense is pivoting off of them and their emotional reactions to this situation. So it's actually pretty cool. It does not, I'm going to warn all of you, it does not actually have very good ratings, but I found it enjoyable. It's not awesomely great, but if you go into it not expecting it to be awesomely great, I think you'll enjoy it, and it's well worth the watch, I thought. I really liked how they played up the psychological and the fantasy elements in the story once you realize that little twist. And watch after the credits, because there's another scene that might change how you interpret the entire movie. So I'm curious if any of you go watch it. Make sure to watch that scene after the credits and then tell me what you think it means, if you think it means anything. So it's worth a watch, definitely, I think. It's called After. It was made in 2012. It has Stephen Strait and Carolina Widra in it, which, incidentally, she has just a touch of an accent, even though she's supposed to be a small-town American girl. Anyway, it's okay. It's a B movie. We're used to this. But it's actually pretty good.
From...
I believe she's Polish. Oh. And it's one of those that just kind of creeps in a little bit, and just enough that sometimes you hear it in certain words and things like that. But gotcha. It's an interesting movie. I liked it. So on that basis, when you get tired of making a murder, or when you really need a break, need to go watch something with some fantasy elements that is a little different, go give After a try. There's a lot of crap that pops up on Netflix. I think this is well worth your time. It's only 90 minutes, and I enjoyed it. And I like that I normally don't watch through the credits, but I was knitting. And so I didn't click the button to stop it, and it played all the way through the credits, and then you see that end scene. And I really liked that element to it, because that has the potential to change how you interpret everything else that happened. So it's interesting. I liked it for that.
I'm super intrigued. I'm going to have to do that. So we're giving recommendations and like homework related to the recommendations, like watch it, go to the end, yes, or watch it, then go look up this website. But that's what you get at Nurture and Support, is multi-layer recommendations.
Absolutely.
There you go. Excellent. Social media for this week. I do have a recommendation. This is kind of an easy one. Because I'm super excited for this movie to come out. I highly recommend, for my social media recommendation, you follow Deadpool Movie at Deadpool Movie. The official Twitter account of the Deadpool Movie, which looks just amazing.
I watched that Red Band trailer. Here's a confession. I watch that Red Band trailer almost every day. When work is getting to me, I have to watch that trailer, and it makes everything okay.
It looks so awesome, and so I've not been a big Deadpool guy in terms of reading the graphic novel or any of that kind of stuff, but it sounds like they're staying true to the spirit, but it just looks really good. I just can't wait.
It looks like it's going to be super fun. And I actually followed that account just the other day. I was like, why am I not following this? I looked them up and I was like, I'm not following this account. But I'm following it on YouTube, but not on Twitter. So anyway, that movie looks like it's going to be so much fun. And I know that they're changing some things. Some people are going to be angry, but I'm sorry. It just looks awesome.
Yeah, it does. Maybe we'll throw the Red Band trailer in the blog post too, just because.
So I can have an easy place to go watch it.
That's right. You can just go, there you go. And we'll get more hits for the blog, too. So there you go. What more can we ask for?
That works.
All right. I have a hard time coming up with a mean thing to say about Matt this week from our recommendations because I could put him in a coma. I could, we're going to turn it over to Matt, our good buddy Matt, who is nice enough to do our outro information, and he will let you know all the many different ways that you can connect to Nurture and Support on iTunes, Twitter, email, etc. So he'll give you all the particulars on that, and Mel and I will be back again next week for some more recommendations. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com, or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter. You can also catch Nurture and Support on YouTube. Just search Nurture and Support or Kelly Toole.
Nurturing and supporting.